It's probably not the most unexpected news in the world, and we definitely talked about it in the past couple of weeks because of his form at Loughmore-Castleiney. But John Meagher has been called up to the Tipperary hurling panel. He's accepted the call and moved away from the Tipperary footballers, which is obviously a huge blow to David Power in his first season in charge of the seniors. What do you make of this call up from Liam Sheedy? Makes sense from your point of view?
Makes total sense. In fairness, yeah, it makes total sense. Anybody who saw any of the Loughmore-Castleiney games this year would have seen, like, he was one of the standout players. You're looking at the three McGraths who he's going to join in on the tip panel now, and you were thinking John Meagher was right in the mix with them for being Loughmore's best player. Just unbelievably consistent in the half back line, a magnet to the ball a lot of the time. The ball just seems to be attracted to him. He's that lovely kind of lefty style, kind of similar to maybe JJ Delaney or that kind of style as well. A real powerhouse of a wing back. Funnily enough, one of the lads he'd be vying for a position with is Seamus Kennedy, who was obviously would have been involved with the Tip footballers as well at one stage. So you're probably going to have two kind of maybe natural footballers battling out for a wing back position. But the only thing is he's coming into a fairly clogged area between, potentially you could have a half back line of Brendan Maher, Ronan Maher and Paddy Maher, and Seamus Kennedy thrown into that as well, and maybe Barry Heffernan in that mix as well, depending on what day it is. But I think from John Maher's point of view, I'd say he's delighted to get another chance. He obviously played some of the league in 2015, but was kind of beset by a couple of injuries and left the panel at the time. Kind of switched back to the football. He's obviously a colossal player for the football as well. He captained Loughmore in the football final last week when they had heartbreak for the second week in a row, beaten a point by Clonmel Commercials in another kind of an epic final. Funnily enough, the dual thing as well, Stephen O'Brien was obviously another fella who started with football, went to hurling and ended up back into football after winning on Ireland in 2016 as a sub. I think John Meagher would be happy to get another chance to prove himself at county level in hurling, and he's in the form of his life. This is the thing about the club season as well. He's coming in, he's played probably the best hurling of his career, and he has a month now to stake a claim for a place. He doesn't have to, go and run Dr. Morris Park for October, November and December and January and then get, a chance against, Waterford in a practice game of a Wednesday night somewhere. He's coming in perfect form now. He'll be delighted with the chances after presenting himself. From his point of view as well, it's the perfect storm for him probably. It's the perfect storm. It's a great opportunity for him.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say a lot of people saw that game between Kilruane and Loughmore that was on telly on RTE a couple of months back. He really stood out that day. He stood out pretty much every day. And I used to think that this guy was going to be the answer for Tipperary at centre back. Now a few lads have stepped in there, definitely in the years since, and obviously Tip have won a couple of All-Irelands in the last 4 years, so there's no real massive issue in the sense of don't have the player power there. But I remember in 2014 watching him playing for the under-21s, and he was unbelievable. Michael Breen was fullback for the under-21s and was playing great stuff, and you had this man John Meagher out centre back. And the game that stood out to me where he was incredible was a game that went to extra time against Clare in the under-21s. I think it was in Ennis, yeah. And he got sent off right at the very end of normal time, and it meant that he was robbed from Tipperary for the extra time, which Clare went on to win 5-19 to 125. So it was one of those, that era of the unbelievable under-21 games that were on telly just time after time after time. But I just thought this guy was the answer, and obviously it didn't quite happen for him. And I think injuries was a big part of that. Like, this guy could have established himself a few years ago if injuries had to go his way, because he's always had the talent. The one thing I'd say, having watched him in the last month or two, is that he's probably going to have to use the ball a little bit better. He did tend to drive the ball long and early an awful lot, which can be fine if it's part of a bit of variety. And you would imagine with the footballing background, generally these players are really composed with the ball in their hands. Seamus Kennedy is a perfect example of that. He's always very composed, always finds the man who's around him, doesn't necessarily just trash it up the field. So if John Meagher, who's in the form of his life in terms of hurling, or the form of certainly his best form for a number of years by as much as we've seen, if he can just marry a little bit of driving out in front of him, a bit of blood and thunder, but also a bit of coolness when he has the ball in his hand, I think he could be a massive, massive asset for Tipperary and could potentially force himself straight into the team, which is going to be a hard thing to do. But then again, Liam Sheedy at this stage, he has a few weeks of training, but a lot of what he'll go off will probably be the club campaign.
100%, yeah. And like, if you're picking a Tipperary club team of the year, he's on it every day of the week at either 6 or 7. Like every day of the week, he was one of the top 3 or 4 probably players in the championship.
Like he's got abrasiveness now. Let's say someone like Paddy Maher, he was having a tough game and they decided to take him out because pace might have been an issue and Tip weren't on the front foot. You've got John Meagher, who's probably got a bit more dynamism to get around the field, yet he has that abrasiveness. I mean, he has a lot to do to ever prove himself in the same bracket as Paddy Maher, but he's the sort of guy who you could see an awful lot of games suiting him.
No, without doubt, yeah. And even I can picture him coming into a game with 15 or 20 minutes to go and being the ball of energy, and teams find it hard to kind of get around him. As you say, his use of the ball. I was only chatting about a couple of the Borough lads about this the other night. Like 10 years ago, it was just different when you were wing back. You were getting the ball and you were leaving it in long. It's not like that now. You need to be able to do the 20-yard passes. You need to be able to break the tackle and hand pass. But I'm sure that's something he's well aware of. It's going to be a step up from club to county, but he's perfect age to do it. He's 27. Potentially he could have 4 or 5 years at county level hurling, and I think he probably sees it as a free shot this year as well. He's coming in great form. It's not probably something that he expected maybe before the club campaign finished, that he'd come into an All-Ireland winning squad and get the chance to make his mark, but he's getting it now, and I'd be surprised if he doesn't take it and make the most of it if he stays injury free, and I'd be surprised if he didn't see championship game time as well.
Okay, so anyone out there, any thoughts on that, let us know.